dreamers out there, and welcome back to my channel. In the last video on POVs, which you should definitely go watch before this one, I shared the important basics that led to this video, which are first, second, and third person POVs, as well as their variations. I also helped you figure out which one would be the best one for your story. In this video, I will discuss switching POVs and how to do so effectively, and also how to write in a male or female POV, since this can get a little bit messy sometimes. If you decide to switch POVs in the middle of the book, which is popular in modern day literature, here are some tips to help you. But even if you opt to not switch, these tips will still prove helpful whenever you're trying to develop your characters, especially the ones later in this video. So, stay tuned. When transitioning between POVs, be extremely cautious. Not every character thinks alike or possesses the same knowledge. Planning your characters is key, especially taking into account their voice, which is the way they talk, their mannerisms, which is the way that they act or the things they tend to do, and also their way of thinking, whether it be logical or emotional leaning. I didn't mention this in my video on planning, which you should totally watch, but I find it helpful to actually take a personality test for each of your individual characters, so then you can have a reference as you're writing your story. You also have to remember what each of your character knows. This is important especially in action-packed stories, because it's really easy to get all of those events mixed up in your head. As you plan, or even as you're writing, you can create a chart for each of your characters, which lists the things that they know, or even the things that they've done, which the other characters don't know about. And this way, the story can remain consistent throughout, and you don't accidentally skip over a huge part that might not seem as huge at first. So, how do you actually execute switching a POV? Well, it's really as straightforward as it sounds. As you finish one chapter in one POV, seamlessly switch to the next. But don't forget those character mannerisms as you continue. If you continue to write the POV for one character, but you're making it seem like they're the other character, that could get a little bit confusing, don't you think? I recommend writing in chronological order, but if you have to skip a chapter or two, it won't hurt you. But let's say you're switching between a male POV and a female POV. You obviously can't know how both of them work, so what are the differences? I had to do a lot of research for my book, The Starfly's Kiss, in order to write Jeremiah. So here are some of the things that I found out that I think you will find helpful. Let me know in the comments if you want more tips like this, or if something didn't quite line up. I'll be sure to try and fix it. By the way, this episode is sort of turning into a fun episode about psychology, so have fun with that. Remember to take everything with a grain of salt. Not everything I say is absolutely true, but it's just what's generally been found about the differences between female and male characters. First, let's talk about butterflies. We all get those butterflies. The feeling when you see that one special person and your heart just leaps for joy. But sometimes it's a bit different. For us girls, it's a racing heart, an irresistible instinct to just smile or do something, and for me, my face gets warm. Though not all of us actually blush. When the butterflies are really butterflying, it feels like fire in your heart almost. For guys, it might be less like butterflies and more like fireworks. When they see that special someone, their mind just go blank, and a balloon full of emotions just sitting there ready to pop. Yet, a feeling of numbness and speechlessness also takes over. At least, that's what I've heard. Like I said, I'm obviously not like a psychology major. It's just what I've heard during my research and such, and also some helpful descriptive words that you might be able to use when you're writing. Now, let's talk about interest. When a guy is interested in a girl, he might say or do what he thinks the girl wants to hear or see. For example, he might act sensitive if he thinks that the girl favors that trait. A lot of times, it's just about imitating what they see culturally. So whatever they think will grab a girl's attention, they'll imitate that and do it too. But most girls just want a gentleman who will treat them nicely or is just charming. This is, of course, depending on the type of girl. When girls are interested in a guy, they do all sorts of playful things. I think they enjoy just looking into his eyes or smiling and having fun with him. I think a lot of us also try to change to be more like that guy. Now, a guy thinks a girl is interested in him if she's nice to him. Though, sorry to break it to you guys, this isn't always the case. You know, girls are allowed to just be nice without having a crush on you. On the other hand, girls think a guy has a crush on her if he jokes a lot with her, or talks a lot with her, or just gives her attention. Okay, now I'm gonna talk about emotion. Though girls tend to be more emotionally expressive than guys are, that doesn't mean that girls have more emotions than guys do. They both process and express emotions way differently. For instance, guys always think that others are just trying to one-up them, making vulnerability a very risky gamble. Emotion for guys is not at the center stage of their thoughts as opposed to girls. This is unless they devote special attention to their emotions. Girls might only be able to think about that one emotion in their head. Our minds will constantly be weaving through the in and outs of what it means. It will be the main thing in our head even as we continue to live our day-to-day lives. Though some girls are just really good at pushing away their emotions for the time being. That takes a lot of mental strength that a lot of us just don't have. An example of this whole dynamic is that a guy might say, oh, it's just a flesh wound, as his arm is falling off or something. No, it's not always them playing tough. Sometimes they're just unaware of the emotions inside of them. But girls, we would not survive losing an arm emotionally. Now I'll talk about thought processes. Girls often think extensively, going through all the rabbit holes about what this means, why it means, all the questions, and then finally end up at the final point. But guys are usually more logically inclined. They focus directly on a problem and seek a solution step by step. Men want to fix things and women want to discuss things, or at least think about things. Though remember, not everyone is the same. Personalities really do take a big effect on this whole thing. Some guys are more prone to emotion than others, or might think different than others. But they're still a girl or a guy and are wired differently. If all else fails, I find that it helps to think about a person that resembles close enough to your character that you're trying to write, and just try to think, what would they do? Or what would they think? And then you can just base your character off of them just a little bit. That's it for this video. If you enjoyed it, please consider subscribing. It's free and it will help support me as I work on my debut novel and also as I try to go to college. But until next time, happy writing!